We'll segue into the next session. Some of you may be wondering why there was this thing on your desks. I have to say, Mark and I, the Brand Innovators team do this amazing, they're an amazing organisation, full stop. They brought us all together, they are very community-minded. But one theme is they do a lot around sport. They do a sports up front. It's an ever-present thing. You know, as we joke in this, I'll mention it and bring one of my colleagues on stage. There's family, there's work, and there's sport. It's kind of that fundamental. Everybody wants a piece of it. So what we did in partnership, and we're really proud, we brought an editorial focus to the state of sport. And you can download it. Please give us your feedback. There are brand marketeers talking. There are big media partners talking about it. Research companies. There's lots of stats. So please, join the conversation, please download and give us your feedback. So that's the plug. I want to introduce one of my partners, Aaron, who was him and the team, and by the way, huge thanks to the team, Laura, Megan, everyone who actually who put this together. And Aaron's going to give you a little bit of a flavour for what's in it, and again, please give us your feedback. Aaron, over to you.
Thank you. Oh, I have to do it with the clip. Oh, it literally is the next slide. That's amazing. Look at this. How fantastic. I was like, play. Obviously, for a lot of you, this is going to be something, a little bit of preaching to the choir, right? I would imagine that the thought of sports being an important part of your marketing portfolio is not going to be a shock to any of you. I think what we really wanted to emphasize and what we wanted to try to bring out in this report is just the dynamic nature of sports and what it means to be a sports marketer today, especially a successful sports marketer. Case in point, we issued the first edition of the sports marketing report in February, and it was immediately out of date because of the Fox bundle with WB and ESPN that was announced, right? Nothing like trying to re-edit a massive PowerPoint or a massive presentation on the floor of the Las Vegas casino during Super Bowl week. I would also, just for the purposes of today, like to point out that right now I am in the protected circle, so if Mr. Kenya Martin tries to dunk on me, that's a foul. But in all seriousness, I think this is just like, now we're playing varsity ball, now that I know who some of my audience is today. Inside of this fantastic, dynamic, updated on a consistent basis report, we cover a whole range of topics, and the cynicism bone inside of you might say, great, it's going to be a whole lot of propaganda from Canvas. It is absolutely the inverse. There's nothing like cold calling CMOs from different that have different marketing agencies outside of there to get their perspective on sports. But then on top of that, when you say we want to talk about sports, suddenly their calendar clears up because it's a passion point. And I think that's what every marketer is trying to tap into. That passion that they have with their audiences and the relationship you have with their fans. The best thing a brand can do is be a part of that community. So, like I said, a full range of topics in here. Everything from just a look at the landscape itself. We always try to stay contemporary, so looking at the Americanization of sports abroad. But even looking at some of the ways that you can involve how audiences are engaging with sport, as well as the technology that is making sports a continuously improved product to consume in whatever form that people choose to consume it. But as Paul alluded to from the very beginning, the central premise that we built this POV around is this idea that there's family, there's work, and then there's sports. And sometimes their passion for sports runs them in the wrong directions, as evidenced by the Super Bowl tattoo for the Lions didn't win the Super Bowl. I don't know if you guys are aware. But what does that really mean? And what it means is there's this ongoing narrative. It pops up every now and then. I think even with the NFL, something as big as the NFL, in the late 2010s, however you want to phrase it, there was all this narrative around that the NFL was dying. And what it really, I don't think it's that any sport is ever truly going to die. It's just the narrative maybe should be it's time to rethink how audiences want to engage with your sport, right? So they changed the game, they changed what they're going to allow. Here's my quick like little, let's do this little experiment here. What's up, brother? Like, you guys know what that is, right? Can you imagine 10 years ago, Sketch and the huge following that he's built in about a month and a half would pop up in sports the way that it has? Like, it would never be welcome. They would keep him at arm's length and say, absolutely not. But the way that the sports, I mean, he's been playing football with CJ Stroud, he's been at Astros games, he's been everywhere. The way that they've embraced that is a reflection of how sports had to change to remain contemporary. Because the interest isn't going anywhere, right? This stat we thought was really interesting that said, you know, as kids in Gen Z are growing up, they're more of a fan than they were before, right? It's just because as the league embraced them, as the content embraced them and the way they choose to watch sports, their fandom's gonna grow. So I think just kind of going back to that central point, sports aren't dying, they just need to change. And the more that they can change to embrace the audiences, the better off they're gonna be. And how can they change, right? It's looking at the new ways that this new generation is watching. You know, my style was lock everything down, organize my lucky pillows in the right configuration on the couch, make sure that there's no distractions, right? Now it's the opposite. It's give me all the distractions. I want to be active with it on social. I want to see what the players are wearing as they're coming to the tunnel. I'm in-game betting throughout the game itself. I also have 3 other games that I have action on because I've got my I can't lose parlay going on it. It's a different way. And I think, again, like as you look at how the leagues are embracing this and the content they're offering, you know, you've got ESPN running multi-screen broadcasts with different broadcasters in different formats going simultaneously and people bouncing back and forth between them. I think that's something that is, the more that we can embrace the sort of the new way, the more relevant your marketing will be in there. And I think it's going to open up all sorts of new opportunities for advertisers. It might be something where it's like, we don't just have to have the half-game title sponsorship, right? Maybe there's something that's more relevant, more valuable to your audience, and it just takes a little bit of work and understanding. So, on that point, let's talk about the big thing that everyone is really talking about right now, which is the explosion in women's sports. I have a daughter, she's 10 years old. She is as passionate about sports. She plays soccer way too many days out of the week. And I think that's a reflection of just how much more prevalent women's sports are today in popular culture, as exemplified with what happened just recently in the NCAA tournament, where the women's final game outdrew the men's. And on that Friday, when LSU played Iowa, I saw more people clustered around TVs watching that than the Major League Baseball games that were going on, the NBA games that were going on. They were watching Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese battle it out, you know, everyone loves a rematch, so it's great. What I've also seen is those that took advantage, that caught that trend, that's a great example of understanding how the dynamics of sports consumption are changing, right? State Farm had 35% of broadcast inventory in the national championship game and killed it, right? So again, it's one of those things that it's like, as soon as you think you understand sports, it's gonna change. You have to be adaptive, you have to react to that changing environment. And so the last thing that we wanna sort of this is the hyper-condensed version of the report, is just looking at this opportunity of what's coming up ahead. And I think as the fragmentation of sports, the explosion of these new sports, I don't want to call them niche sports, I don't want to call them, new's not right either, but these sports that are really gaining a foothold in popular culture, it has only elevated the intensity and the desire for the rights and the streaming rights that, you know, to carry those sports themselves. There's a great stat out there in the report that talks about in 2021, there was $63 billion in sports sponsorships. That number is expected to increase to $130 billion in 2030. So when you think about that, there's a huge piece of action at stake. And so how these leagues are now reacting to what was once like, we have to be on one of the linear networks, I think is no longer the case. With this advent and this acceptance of streaming and the vitality of streaming, we're really seeing a lot more intense desire to proliferate their carrying across all the different channels that these younger generations are consuming it. So in total, like, I've just given you just but a mere glimpse of what sits inside the report. It's something that we're really proud of. It's something that we'll continue to update throughout the year. I think we're already working on version number 3 ahead of the Olympic Games. But please, like Ms. Paul mentioned, like this is only something that's valuable to us if it's valuable to you. So if there's areas or content that you want to see included in there or something you'd like us to explore, this is something that we're really passionate about, and we will be happy to sort of keep this thing as dynamic as possible. So, thanks.
Okay.